Hello everybody, welcome to video editing, the editing process and project management. Today we'll be talking about organizing and preparing to edit and essentially how to become your own assistant editor. And I think, really important topic and discussion because oftentimes, we rush into editing, get things going, and if you, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail, as the expression goes. So really important to get everything prepared, organized, understand where things are being saved, where things are going, and if you didn't join us in the earlier session today, it was on data management. We'll have that posted on our YouTube channel in the coming days as well. So that's a good reference point as well, doing that backup and data management. So really, the goal today is how do we get you to think. Traditionally, there's always been you're editing. There's an assistant editor that prepares stuff for you, your project, your footage, and then you just can edit. But really we have to do our own assistant editing generally as editors now. So that's one of the big things, especially in independent filmmaking. We're often just doing that on our own and ourselves. So that's really what we're going to look at today is how do we work into that and become our own assistant editor and get everything ready and work on our project management in that manner. So here's what we're going to look at. We're going to look at a lot of stuff to go through, types of footage. We'll look at the camera footage, offloading it from the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema cameras. Again, these are what's available through our library partners. Then we're going to look at some of the hard drives, overview of the nonlinear editing software. How do we start a project? How do we import footage? Adjusting footage specs, adding the LUTs, the lookup tables for raw files. How do we add color to the raw files, and then naming and organizing footage into bins. And that's really the most important part. And that's where we get into the assistant editing. Then we're ready to edit, saving the project, exporting the project. So we want to have a backup of this project, and that's really the key. Is that our media can be tons of terabytes in size. You could have 16 terabytes of media for your video editing project, but then your DaVinci Resolve project will just be 1 or 2 megabytes. And that's really important because that allows you to then save that, open it up in the future, and have that. And that's really a big part. Now also, I really recommend exporting and saving that as you go, because as you're working, what happens if something happened to your project file and it got corrupted, or there's some sort of an issue on your hard drive that you're working off of. So as you go, whether it's daily, weekly, set up a time and you say, okay, I'm going to do backup of this project every once in a while, so that you can then go to it. And how do we do that? We do the backup, put a date on it, and then it's there. So it's saved, and it's a couple megs. Put it into cloud storage. You can email it to yourself, and then you have it somewhere. And then it's really a great resource to have. Okay, so let's get right into the types of footage, and this is important in our organizing, is understanding what everything is. So we have our original video files, that's from our cameras. We have our photos, that's from any device, or it could be stock photos. We have graphics, things like logos, illustrations. Then we have our audio, so that could be things like music, sound effects, any kind of music, voiceovers, any kind of audio that we're bringing to the table. So that's the type of footage that you're bringing into this. So offloading from the camera. So the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 4K has 2 types of cards. So this is the camera you can access through our CreatorSpace digital technology that's available at the Blue Mountains Public Library and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. Access the camera, use the camera, and then you'll be finding that you're using these 2 types of media cards. So there's an SD card, and there's a CFast 2.0 card. And both cards are used to record the video files. Generally, the CFast 2.0 card will be something that you'd use for the 4K capture. SD card would be able to do the HD capture as well. So that's really something going back to the camera. But in the editing, this is the first thing, is offloading it. Maybe someone already offloaded it and you already have the files on a drive. But it's always good just to know if hey, you're filming, you need to edit, right? So, how do we do this? We open up the side here and we get our SD card. You click and it pulls out. So voila, we have our SD card, the small card. Click in and we get our larger, the CFast 2.0 card. It's like a compact flash, but it's the 2.0. So it's the newer version that a lot of cameras are using. And that is a standard across the Blackmagic camera line. So if you're going to Ursa's and other cameras, that CFast 2.0 will be used for that. And then we're basically putting it into some sort of a card reader. So whether it's on the back of the iMac, you can just put the SD cards, or like these kinds of card readers, you're putting the cards into the appropriate slots, right? Plugging it into the computer, and then the computer will find the information. So that's how, and then you're just basically copying, so you can drag and drop it into another folder and say, okay, this is, today's date, card A or camera A, card 1, copy it over, and then you've offloaded your footage. So that's really all that's necessary. So hard drives, and this is also goes for the actual media drives as well, is that, what format will they be? So we're recommending using the exFAT format because it's universal, and that can be used on both the Windows OS and Mac OS. And these cameras you can do in either exFAT or you can do in a Mac format, where you can format on the cameras as well. So that would be the next thing, is having some sort of an external hard drive where you're going to put all this media onto. So that would be the next step there. Types of media. This is where we get into different codecs or the wrapper file that we'll encounter. Types of different media. So you'll see things like a MP4, MPEG-4. That would be with an H.264 codec. And then there's a QuickTime file with an H.264 codec, or there's something called Apple ProRes codec, which is a MOV. Both of these will be a .mov. First one will be a .mp4. And then we have Blackmagic RAW file, which becomes a .braw, B-R-A-W. And that's a proprietary format used with the Blackmagic systems and cameras. And that will be allowing you to use 4K capture, 4K RAW, so on. And it's about the same size as the HD files in Apple ProRes. So that's really a great feature that it works. So these are the types of media we'll encounter generally, these MP4, MOV, BRAW that we're going to see in most of our equipment. There's also some other ones. So, Canon, there's MXF, and that's something too. So if you're shooting with some of the other cameras, there can be an MXF format, and that can be loaded into Resolve as well. And that one's a little bit different because that doesn't just play, it's like a multi-layered. The MXF has like video and audio separate, and it plays it together. So it's something to keep in mind with that kind of a format, but that will load in as well. So that's what you might encounter. So understanding your footage formats, and then you're good to go from there. Okay, so Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve. So this is a free nonlinear editing software. This is what we're recommending that you can just use. It's free. You can download it. It works on Mac, Windows, and then the studio version we also have available on our library computers, the iMacs. So we have the Blackmagic DaVinci Resolve Studio version that has total unlocked in terms of the some of the audio effects and resolutions. Everything's unlocked. The free one, you can just go up to 4K, and then the studio one lets you go beyond 4K, so you can work in like 8K, 12K. So this software, is great that you can edit with it. It comes from a background in color grading, and you'll notice that if you look it up, a lot of major Hollywood films, shows, music videos use Resolve for color grading, but it does have the editing option in it. It has great sound, and it has something called Fusion for basically like After Effects visual effects work. So it's quite a robust piece of software that is free to download, and if you want to, you can use the studio version at our library partners. So again, Blue Mountains, Collingwood, Wasaga Beach, go there, 2 iMacs with the Resolve Studio. So importing footage, starting a project, and importing. So let's get this demoed. We're using DaVinci Resolve 17. I just didn't update that slide there, but let's start a demo. So we'll just look at getting right into the project. So let me just escape out of here. So, how do we get going? You'll find this little icon down here, Blackmagic Resolve. It's going to open itself up, and I'm going to start a brand new project, and then import footage and get all of that going. So this will just take a moment here. Opening, and you'll see it's going to load up like so. All the drives are whirring away, getting ready. And here's what it will look like. So if I have an actual card in here, let's just give this a look. So I'm going to plug in this SD card here. That's showing up somewhere. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Okay, so here's a card. So this is one of the SD cards. So here's, you know, some of the footage directly from a card, right? And then it's, you see that's where it is. It's labeled like so. And then, so I would take these, then I would say, okay, I'm going to be working over here. I'm going to, you know, put a new folder and say demo edit. I'll go another new folder, right click, ACAM card 1. Right, so if you have multiple cameras, they would just go A, B, C, D, and so on. Take these, drag them over, and we're good to go. Right, so that, and that's copied over, and then you have your card there. So that's how you would bring footage in. It's really that simple. So now what I'm going to do is decide where I want to go. So I can say I have a couple of folders here. So I've created a volume in my external drive, Creator Resolve projects. So that's the first step, is figure out a place where to put all your projects. So I have multiple kind of project levels here. And I have like a local database that has the most. Right, so that's really nice. So I'm going to go to Creator Space right here. I'm going to go Untitled Project. This is how we start a new project. And that's it. We're in the cut. So what I'm going to do is go to the Media tab. And then what I like to do is right away start down here in the master area right here. I'm going to go New Bin. So in the past, film was always stored on bins. And it was hung up on like little bins that would roll around. That's where we get the name bin. Bin is really like a folder. So here we go. So if I would go like, you know, today's date, January 27th, I think it is, 2022, right? So there's like a bin, right? And then from there, I'll right click, I'm gonna go New Bin, and I'm gonna go ACAM card 1. So you can see under today's date, I can then have multiple bins. So this is how we start to organize our project. We have this master bin, and then we can organize ourselves with, okay, here's today's date, ACAM card 1, I can have ACAM card 2, BCAM card 1, and so on. So as you've offloaded it, that way it has some understanding of what cards from what camera and things like that. So ACAM could be, let's say, a wide shot, BCAM might be a close-up if there's multiple cameras, things to consider, and that could be very typical. Otherwise, it might just be all ACAM, but you still want to call it ACAM because you might use a different camera, and anytime you use a different camera, you want to call it B. So let's say you use a GoPro, you want to call that your B camera instead of just the what's in the A camera, right? So the GoPro, you get into a B camera and so on. And then they use another camera, let's say you use a Canon, the 6D that's available through our library partners. You take that and then you go and you know, use shoot with that. That could be a B or C camera, right? And so on and so forth. Okay, so now our A camera, that's our card 1. Now I'm going to right click, import media. So I'm going to find some media that I already have and kind of give you an idea of, this is a project I worked on, multi-camera. So here you go, it has ACAM, BCAM, CCAM, DCAM. Kind of see it like this. So I'm going to go ACAM, and this is all card 1. And I'm going to say, okay, let's open all of these up, right? So I open them all up, hit open. Change project frame rate. So this message says, hey, I want to change your project frame rate because it's different than the default. So yes, we want it to change the frame rate. So it's going to go to 23.976. That's what I shot it at. It says right here, frames per second, right? And that's good to know. And then we're ready to go. So now we have all the different shots. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you can see it's just a wide shot of performers. Okay, and now let's do the same thing. This is a good example. So I'm going to go new bin. I'm going to go bcam card 1. Do that. And I'm going to import media. It's also Command I to import media. I'm going to find the bcam and click on these. Go open. It's going to load it all. And this is all a virtual link, so it's not actually like loading anything in. In the past, if you use some older nonlinear editing software, it would actually have to import everything. It could take some time. It could take hours to load footage. And that was a big part of having the assistant editor, to load in footage, make your footage work, and make it all happen. And I think I might have just made this crash, which is kind of funny. But yeah, so that's how we would be able to bring things in. So yeah, so then as you can see, so we've labeled each thing. So A cam, B cam, and then we can go further into outlining what it's supposed to do. Bear with me 1 second. Oh, there we go. Okay, we got it. Okay, so here's our B cam. So you can see different shots. And that's our B cam. And this is all shot in what's called the raw mode, and you can see it's like flat looking, right? And that's all good. So then what I would do is, from here, what's really important is start to organize your footage. So you can name it. So based on, if you have a script, name it based on the scenes. So if it's like scene 12, shot A, you'll have information like that. Otherwise, name it in some way that you can, just understand it. And that's the whole thing of organizing your footage. So this isn't bad because it already has like, C001 and so on. So, I don't need to do too much more. I would basically, I like that it has that numeric already. So I'm thinking, I would just basically go through this and say A cam. And then I just know that, each one is just the A cam. And it gives me a little bit of some organization, right? So I just go through that, and then I know that's 1, 2, 3, and so on. And then B cam, see, this is nice. I can then, same thing, I just go, okay, this is B cam, right? And just go through B cam, so on, right? And shot 1, 2, 3, 4. And that's all we need to do. So that's a great organizational method like that. So now, see, it's untitled project. Don't have a name for it or anything. So that's our next step, is getting this saved as something. So what I'm going to do too is say, okay, let's look at the project settings. What do we want to edit in? So here's the timeline resolution. This is really important, deciding what your timeline resolution is going to be. So I think this stuff's shot in a 6K mode, but what I'm going to do is, let's go and make, let's say we're going to make this all Ultra HD. So I'm going to say, okay, let's make this all Ultra HD. We have our timeline frame rate already based on the footage that I imported. Video monitoring, now here's another choice. You can say, do you want to monitor in HD, and so on. So you can edit in 4K, but you can monitor in HD. And that could be kind of a resource saving mechanism, or if you don't have a 4K TV. I have a 4K output here. Oops, 2K, Ultra HD, and I'll say save, right? So that's the first thing, project settings, making sure that I'm working in the project resolution. And I urge you to go to our website, tbmcs.ca. You can find, we have a whole a session on project formats and resolution. So go through that, but it's basically HD, Ultra HD, or 4K DCI. There's 6K, 8K now, 12K we're seeing. So lots of different resolutions. So you can always work in any resolution, but you just want to make sure that you decide that ahead of time, because your timelines will all work in that resolution. So if you say, I'm working in HD, you're going to stay in HD. If you want to work in the 4K, you can work in 4K. Now, I always recommend working in the higher resolution. So if you filmed it in 4K, keep your project in 4K, because it's easy to render out HD. You don't want to have to up-res it from so you want to work in that native resolution of what you filmed it at. In this case, I'm going a little bit under because I need just a 4K master for that 6K footage. So just a little bit of a sidebar on all of that. Okay, so we have all our information, and now what I'm going to do is save project as. Let's give it a name. I'm going to say creator space editing demo January 2022, save. Okay, so now I got the name. So again, the name would be obviously more of what the project's about and so on, but now we're actually saved. And then there we go. So this is the whole thing of the assistant editing, is just getting all this footage ready. We're not creating sequences, we're not doing anything else, but we're just getting all this footage ready, named, and going on from there. So now what I can do is say, okay, well this is, you can see these are all flat. What I can do is go right click, clip attributes. We can look at, okay, what are the attributes here? So here I can decide, what audio do we want to use? You can use different audio, the time code here, and the name of it. I can change the name here. So that's clip attributes is kind of useful because you can always, play with what everything is in terms of the audio. I'm going to right click. I'm going to go to the LUT, the lookup table. I'm going to go Blackmagic Design, and I'm going to say Generation 5 to film, because that's what we're using now in these cameras. This Generation 5 color. So I'm going to say do that. And you can see now it got really dark. And that's giving that lookup table of applying basically like a contrast, applying color, and making that that work. Let's see, you can see it's a bit darker, right? So that's applying the lookup table. So that's always great for editing because it's basically like a base color grade. And you can just as easily get rid of it later through this media. And how do we get rid of it? So I can just go back here, right click, see the LUT, and I can say no LUT selected. Oops, no LUT selected, and it goes back to that flat, right? So we can just get rid of it just as easily as we can bring it in. So that's really great, and that works nicely. Okay. So that's great. So that's another shot there, and that's how we keep going through our footage and managing everything and working from there. So that's our LUT. And that's our data management in terms of getting all the footage in. Now, just as we did the save project as, I can export the timeline, but I can also export the project. This is where we do our nice backups. So, so I can go, let's just put this on the desktop. I'm going to say resolve backups. Okay, and I'm going to go save. And you can see with all this footage, so this is probably about, a terabyte of footage, this project, and there's, probably 50 clips. So a little bit of a bigger, it's not huge, but, something. So now let's look at what it looks like. So I'm going to go right here, Resolve Backups. This is what I've created. So the DaVinci Resolve project is 1.2 megabytes. That's great. That's tiny. I can email it to myself. And this is what I'd want to do. And then here I can further call it something, I can call it backup January 27, 2022, just so I really know when it was backed up last, and that gives me some more information. So as your own assistant editor, this is crucial. You want to be doing these kinds of backups so it exists somewhere. Because what happens if, it crashes, I don't need to open that one. So what happens if it crashes, you have some issues, and you did all this work, you spent 2 weeks editing, and then you lose the whole project, or something happens, the project gets corrupted. It saves weird, it starts lagging, slows down. That can happen. That way you can just open up your backup, and maybe, if you're backing up every day, you just lost, a little bit as you found the problem. You couldn't open it up, you lost a little bit. Again, a few hours or an hour lost is much better than losing 2 weeks. And that's the key with the backups. You have it there, you can rebuild things. And then the media has nothing to do with that project. So it's 1.2 megabytes, and the media is totally its own thing. And then we keep going from there, and working on the edit. So this is all that's the main thing that's required to get your assistant editor hat on is that. Now the next thing that I would do is, if I just get out of this, so let's say this is my footage here. So I'm going to find that exact project. So I'm just working off this project. Here's my ABCD cams. right here. So then what I would do is I would also, here's like kind of a backup drive I have here. I don't think I have too much space available on this drive. So right click, get info, tells me I have 67 gigs. So it's a pretty full drive. So what I would do here is, create a folder and then go backup of live the dash raw, right? And once, this would be even before editing. So I'd have everything onto my, offload everything, and then I'd have everything onto this backup drive. And that's really crucial, is having that backup drive, making sure it works, and keeping it up to date. So what I usually put on the backup drive, as generally my own assistant editor, is I put up the backup drive. I put in like if there's a new music that I've purchased for use or a composer's made, I keep putting all of that in the backup drive as well. So really all the project's elements. It's not just the raw. You want to be updating it with, if there's graphics, logos, music, voiceover, any new content that is all part of the project, all of that media should be getting backed up. So, if you recorded a voiceover, you want to make sure that that voiceover is backed up and that it's going somewhere, it's stored, you can rebuild it. So it's not just about your raw, it's about all the project's media, because that DaVinci Resolve project file that's 1.2 megabytes is just that. It's only that file. It doesn't have everything else. And it's really crucial to make sure you have all that media backed up so that you can work in that way. So that's really the importance of having everything backed up on a regular basis. It's no longer just backing up just the raw footage itself, but it's about backing up all of your media. So the DaVinci Resolve project will not contain your voiceover. It needs that media. It will not contain your original music that a composer created that you have as a WAV file. That has to get backed up. So it's really crucial that you're doing that that constantly, to making sure that all your media is up to date, as well as your project. And then once you have all of this, basically, what do? We're ready to edit. You save your project and you keep going from there. And you just keep editing, adding footage, and going from there. But that's the whole thing. You're ready to go. You add more footage, organizing it, and doing that constant backup of all your media files. So it's treat all of your media files as what's required to be backed up. It's not just your original raw footage. So that's really, really important, is that it's all your media files. So that takes us through this is what we've wanted to get through. So the editing process, right? That's how we bring footage in, get everything backed up, the project manager. Just want to thank all our partners again in this project for making this happen. The Canada Council for the Arts, the Blue Mountains Public Library, Collingwood Public Library, and the Wasaga Beach Public Library. You can access our digital arts iMac computers directly at these library partners, where you can do this editing, do this preparation, get into the habit of, there's an external drive. If you can get your own external drive for video editing, really important to have your own backups as well, and then work in that manner. You can take the camera out if you haven't done a proficiency test and you want to use the camera to shoot some footage to then do this editing setup, just even to go through the process of doing it. You just need to do a proficiency test on our website. Once you pass that, we send it off and you can get access to the computers. That's from the Blue Mountains Public Library and Wasaga Beach Public Library. Have some great news. We have some masterclass sessions coming up. We have a screenwriting session that's actually starting next Wednesday. And it's a small limited number of people that can attend it. And we still have a few spots available. So if you want to check it out, go to our website, go to our upcoming workshops, check out the masterclass series. We have 3 available right now to sign up for. We have screenwriting, then we're going into a production, and then we're going into cinematography as well. So 3 workshops. So they're going to be, the first one's a small virtual room in February, and then starting in March and April, they will be in person, hands-on, with equipment, with lights, and so on. So I really encourage you. And what we're going to be doing is, whoever does the screenwriting, we're going to use those scripts and concepts to then workshop through into making the film. So if you want to have a script that can get into some production, then I encourage you to sign up for the screenwriting so you can move through cinematography and production and carry through. So it's really exciting. If you haven't checked it out yet, please do. tbmcs.ca. sign up for our masterclass, and I hope to see you there. So that would be a really fun, our masterclass series for 2022. We're going to have 6 4-week sessions happening. So really excited to announce that. So wanted to let everyone know who's joining us here. So thanks again. Have a great rest of the day. This will be available for you to rewatch. And as always, we put everything on our YouTube channel that has everything there from our past sessions. So great resource of a lot of editing workshops there as well. Thanks again for joining us, and have a great rest of the day. All the best.